Okay, and talking about actually JavaScript functions. Okay, so what are functions? Okay, so functions is basically, so it's a piece of code that performs actions, and it allows to use as many times as possible. So it's kind of a reusable piece of code, basically. And in JavaScript, we have two types of functions, like in probably any other language. So we have inbuilt functions and our own. So means the one that we specify, the one that we create. Okay. So before we start making our own functions, okay, let us check some inbuilt functions that we already know. And let me show you. So once again, we go to our browser, we go to console. So more tools, developer tools, and then console here. And stop the transcription. Okay, so here we're going to write our first inbuilt functions, which is alert. So I'm going to say alert, and inside of my parentheses, I need to specify the message. So I'm just going to say hello. And if I execute this one, it says an embedded page at new tab page says hello. Okay. So once again, alert is something defined for us. Okay, so it's an inbuilt JavaScript function. We don't actually know what happens inside of these functions, but if you just type alert without parentheses and without message in the brackets, you can actually get the function alert, and it says f alert something, and inside we have native code. So native code is something that is defined already for us by JavaScript developers. What else we have? We know we have prompt. Okay, prompt is another inbuilt function. So if we execute this one, it expects us to have an input. Okay, so fine. If I say fine, it returns fine. Okay, so if we check what is inside of our prompt, okay, so it's a function. F stands for function. That's a function name, and there is a native code inside of it. And sorry, someone is calling. Sorry. And so we have we have also other inbuilt functions, and if you would like to know about them more, you can go to I don't know, Google, and you just say JavaScript inbuilt functions. Okay, and there is a tutorials point that pops up. We have a constructor to exponential to precision to string, so on and so forth. Okay, so a lot of already defined inbuilt functions. Some of them are working with strings, some of them working with Boolean, number methods we have, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now let's talk about functions of our own, the one that we define, the one that we create. Okay, so how do we check first, how do we define it, or how do we create functions? Okay, so for us, in order to create a function, we need to say a function. So we need to provide a function. So it's a keyword, okay, and then we need to specify the function name, and the function name can be anything. So once again, it also should not start with a number or something. So it should start either with a letter or yeah, it should either start with a letter. Okay, and let's say multiply. And here in the function, okay, or in parentheses, we need to specify the following things. We need to specify what we call parameters, right? So we have different types of parameters, okay? Unlike Java, where you specifically need to say what kind of parameter we expect, here we can say just the parameter name, for example, A, and let's say B as a second parameter name. So we don't put integer A, integer B to say that does have to be an integer. So any other data type will not work with this function. So you don't need to say this in JavaScript. Instead, you just need to say parameter names and what you're going to do with the parameter. So if I say A multiplied by B, and if I close it, so if I click enter, now it gives me undefined, but actually if I check, I can check it. So it says multiply, and multiply is a function that accepts two parameters, A and B, and sorry, someone's calling me. A and B, so the two parameters, and you multiply them. So you say A multiplied by B, and it should give us. So it should give us something. So it should give us multiplication. And how do we call a function? In order to call a function, you need to say the function name and parentheses. And inside of parentheses, you need to specify numbers or input values. And in our case, let's say 2 as a B, as a sorry, and another 2 as a B. So what do we expect at the end, or as a return? It gives us undefined. Why is that? So there is one problem with this function. Could anyone tell me what's the problem with this function? Anyone?
There in multiply you use 2 and 2. I think you should use two different numbers. Maybe.
Once again, let's I had some troubles hearing
You
you.
should use two different numbers.
Let's try. Anyway, it gives us undefined. Any other ideas? So the problem is we are calling this function, right? But there is one problem in our expression. So we are not returning the actual output. So we need to say return, and then we need to say A multiplied by B. So we're returning modified output or modified input. Sorry, we have our values A and B. We do some math operations and return the results. So if we now execute multiply 2 and 3, will give us 6. 2 and 2 will give us 4, and other things as well. So if I change any number, let's say 100,000 and any other things, it will definitely give us this result. So the reason why we should always use return value, or at least, I don't know, print or console log value, is because in case if we will have, let's say, infinite loop, we will always be multiplying numbers, and we will not actually finish the execution. So we'll start with the infinite loop, and that's something you should always avoid. Okay, and let me show you an example. Okay, so let's say we have if true, and then you say function multiply. Let's define another function. So let's say add A and B, and we have A plus B. So we have now a new function that says add, and we're going to have an infinite loop. So if true, or let's say while true, add 2 and let's say 5. Okay, so what is actually happening right now is we are having this problem of an infinite loop. So even let's say not while and true. Let's use another example for this one, probably console.log, so we can see the result. I hate console. Okay, so I think it's time for us to move on from console. Okay, and I'm going to actually use Visual Studio Code for writing our JavaScript. Okay, so I think I'm done with this one. So one moment, please. So we have our file, okay, and right now it's just a plain text. I'm just going to change it to JavaScript. Okay, so we have an untitled JavaScript function, or let's say script.js, and we're going to save it on my desktop. And I will also create my HTML file so that I can execute them together. Now I need to connect it together. So I say script. Course should be script.js relationship. We don't even specify relationship, I think. That's fine now. So we just specified our script.js to our index.html, and let's check if it works. Once again, we're going to use console.log. It's working. And now let me run it. So I open my index.html. Nothing pops up here because our HTML is actually empty now. But if you open developer tools and if you go to console, it says it's working. So this message actually comes up or comes out from our script.js. So now our index.html is connected with our script. So we can do other things here as well. And the first one, let me tell you how do we declare functions in how do we declare functions in JavaScript. There are two ways you can declare functions in JavaScript. The first one I already showed you. You just say function, and then you specify function name. In our case, let's say subtract A and B. And always you have to write your parameters inside the parentheses. Okay, so we have parameter A and parameter B. And those data types are not specified. Okay, so we do not specify a data type for A, and we do not specify data type for B. Okay, and then you just in the curly brackets you have your expression, and don't forget to return the value. So in our case, it's going to be A minus B. Now, if we save it, okay, and if we refresh our console, so we don't see our function here because we are not calling it. In order for us to call this function, we need to type down its name and its parameters. So if I say 5 and 1, it will give me 4. So 5 minus 1 gives me 4. And if I change the places, if I say 1 and 5, it will give me minus 4. Okay, so orders in case of subtract matters here. Okay, so don't forget about this one. So what happens if we do not say return value? If we say console and let's say log hello, and or not even hello, but let's just say a. Okay, and our function is not going to call subtract, but let's just call it print out. Print ln stands for print line, just like in Java. So if we do so, and if we refresh our page, our index.html, so subtract, we don't have it anymore because it's not defined. So we say subtract is not defined. Well, basically that happened because we simply updated our JavaScript and refreshed our index.html file. What happens now with a new function, println? So if I execute this one, println, you can see println, it gives me the structure of my function. So it should print out a message in console. Okay. So, and I need to specify its parameters, and there is only one parameter, a. So if I say hello and then execute this one, it gives me hello. What happens if we are going to call this function, okay, inside of our script.js while having an infinite loop? So we're just going to say while true, okay, and we're going to say print line, and let's say hello here. What do you think will happen with this message? Let's refresh our page, and you can see we are having this problem of infinite loop. So basically, we are not closing our loop here, and that's why we're getting those increments here. Okay, and in order for us to fix it, we should always have a return parameter, or let's say break parameter. And when we are going to talk about loops, I will tell you about this one as well. So that's for now. Okay, so don't forget, either we should have return value to save it somewhere, or if you would like to print it out, you can use console.log. So that's a little bit about functions. So we can have different types of functions. We can have, for example, complicated functions like this one function. Let's call it, I don't know, math. Okay, and we're going to accept values a and b, and we're going to do the following. If a is greater than b, we're going to say return a minus b. If a is greater or is less than or equal b, then we are going to do vice versa. So we're going to subtract b minus a. Okay. And so it's a little bit complicated function. So we have a function and we have conditions side of it. So those can the input or the output value, sorry, the output value will depend on what we pass to this function. What kind of parameter do we pass? And let's check it out. So we are going to say, so we need to run it. So our console is fine now. So I'm just going to say math. And you can see we have two types of math. The first one is with the capital letters, and it says math is not defined. And we have math starting with the lowercase letters, and this is the one that I define. And as any other programming language, JavaScript is also case sensitive. So it means if you have math like this and math with the lower cases, it's two different things. Okay, so please be careful about this one. Once again, JavaScript is a case sensitive programming language. So what can we do with this function? Okay, so we can execute this one. We can say math, and then we need to specify parameters. So let's check it out, the first condition. And sorry, it should be else if here. My bad. To refresh the page and check a math function again. So it says else if. Now it's fine. So let me run this function. So I'm just going to say math, and let's say let's have the case where a is greater than b. So let's say 5, and let's say 4. Well, it will give me a result as 1. Why is that? Because 5 minus 4, 5 minus 4 gives us 1. What if we have vice versa? So we have a as 4 and 5 as b. It will give us once again 1, but in this case it will give us 1 because this condition, the first condition, is false. So it goes to the next one and it checks whether a is greater or is less than or equal b. So that's why it gives us 1 here. So, and if I say it 8, it will give me 4 because 8 minus 4 gives me 4. So that's a little bit about functions here. Okay, and the next thing we need to talk about is inner functions. So you can have functions inside of functions, basically. So let's have one. So what if I say alert? So once again, alert is an inbuilt function that we have. And inside of alert, I'm going to say math. And here I will specify 4 and 1. So what it will give me? First, it's going to execute inside function. So first it's going to execute what we have inside of alert. It will give me 3, and only then it will print out 3. So let's check it out. It says 3. Once again, how it works, we start from the inside elements. So we first execute math, which is actually 4 minus 1, gives me 3, and then alert 3 pops up this message 3. So what we can do, what other things we can do? Let's say alert, or yeah, let's work with the inbuilt functions. So we're going to say alert first, and then we're going to use the prompt, another inbuilt function, and inside of it we're going to say, let's say how old are you? And now what happens if I run these functions? Well, the first thing is going to ask me how old I am. Okay. And if I say, let's say 25 here, and if I click OK, it then will print out 25. And it print out 25 not because we run this function. Okay. No, prompt function only returns 25 and probably saves it somewhere. But alert function is actually responsible for this pop-up message. Okay. And we can have multiple parameters for this one. So we can say hello, I am, and then I say plus. What do you think will happen? So if I execute this one, it once again asks me how old I am, and I'm going to say 25, and then it will print out the message, hello, I am 25. That's how well inner functions are working in JavaScript as well. Basically, I think in any other language as well, in Python, in Java, in C++, it always starts with inner elements. So if we will have, let's say, 3 levels of inner functions, it will start with the 3rd level, then it will go to the 2nd, and only then to the 3rd level. So let's see. We can even check this one. So let's say first alert a function. We have alert function, and then let's say we have math. And here we specify 4 minus, and then for the b function, or for the b parameter, we're going to have another function. The one that we have here is, well, we don't have any, but I can call math as well here. Math, and then I'm going to say 3 and 5. What do you think will be the result of these functions?
Maybe 2.
Maybe 2. Why is that maybe? I would like to hear the confident answer for this one. Is this 2 or maybe 2?
It's 2.
Exactly 2.
Okay. Let's try it out. Yes, you're correct. Exactly 2. So the first one is going to execute the third level function. So this one is the most deep one. So it will give us at the end 2. Then 2 will be passed as the parameter to our math function of the second level. So it will be math4, comma 2. Then it will give us 2 at the end, and then we will say alert 2. That is actually what we saw here. And yeah, that's a little bit about functions in JavaScript. Okay, so not very difficult. Okay, so talking about function declaration, we have, as I said, 2 types. And the first one I already showed you, function declaration. And the second thing is what we call function expression. So you can even Google it, function expression versus function declaration in JavaScript. Okay, so let's say JavaScript. Okay. And well, it will directly bring us to the developer.mozilla.org. Okay, and here we have function expression. Okay, and function. So where is it? Function declaration. So the one that we saw here is we specify with the keyword function, then the function name, some parameters, and expression. Function, where is it? Function expression is something very difficult, different. Okay, so here we need to specify a variable. So we need to say var. Var stands for variable. So we are going to say, well, let me delete the first one. So we're going to keep function math, and let's have variable, well, let's call it a. And a will be equal to, or we assign value to our a function. And in our case, it's going to be another function. And we're going to say, well, basically, we're going to return a multiplied by a, so a squared, basically. Okay. And if we save it and now refresh our page, a is a function declared with the function expression and what it will give us. So let's say here, yeah, we should specify the value. My bad. Should be value multiplied by. Okay, so a now accepts the parameter value and it returns its square. So let's try it out. So 2 will give us 4, 3 will give us 9, 5 will give us 25, and so on. So basically, that's how we declare or we write functions or we create functions in JavaScript. We have function declaration like this, and we have function expression like this. There is not much difference between them. So I personally, I prefer using function declarations instead of function expressions. But in case if you see something like this, don't be scared, don't be confused. Okay, so it's another just way of defining functions in JavaScript. Okay. And now let's have a quick break. So until so I'm just going to give you 8 minutes break, and then we're going to start early and finish very quickly. Okay. So the next topic we're going to talk about are arrays. Arrays is another data type we have in JavaScript. Okay. So let's talk about arrays after the break. So 7 minutes break. Everyone, welcome back. So the next thing I would like to talk about is a data type or a data structure, let's say, that we have in JavaScript. And we have two types of data structures in JavaScript. The first one is an array, and the second one is an object. So today we're going to talk about JavaScript arrays. Okay, and let me show you something like this. Okay, so what you see here is a file cabinet. Okay, so basically an array is a file cabinet in real world. So in file cabinet, you have those different sections, the first one, second, third, and fourth, where you can keep your files. For example, here you can keep, well, let's say IDs. Here you can save names and so on and so forth, okay? Or let's say this whole cabinet is actually about a cabinet of names. Here you have James, here you have Andrew, and Alan, and so on, okay? So you have different names and you keep them in different sections. The same thing happens with arrays in JavaScript. So it's a way of keeping or structuring your data so it so it's a way of structuring your data so you can keep it in one kind of a variable. The first thing we need to do is how do we define variables, or how do we define arrays in JavaScript? So let us begin. The first one I would like to show you is that we defined variables with the keyword var. Var stands for variable, and you can just specify var and then the variable name. In our case, it's going to be, let's say, b. And then you can assign different values to that variable. In our case, let's say 2. And if we print 2, there's something wrong with my oops, something wrong with my browser, so I'm going to run it once again. I think now it's fine. So var b is equal to, let's say, 2. And if we check it later, b keeps a value of 2. Okay. So how do we define arrays in JavaScript? And I have this a little cheat sheet that tells us how do we define arrays in JavaScript. And in order for us to define an array, we need to do the following. We need to say variable of var as a keyword, and then we need to provide an array name. So let's say list, and we just simply say like this. Now our list is actually an array, okay, with the lengths. So our arrays have properties, and one of the properties is actually the length of an array. And we're going to talk about the length of array a little bit later. Now let's just talk about arrays and what we have inside. So if once again, if I print out list, I have nothing inside of it. Why is that? Because I haven't defined anything inside of my list. How do I change it? So since I already defined my variable list, I can just simply say list, and here I need to assign some values to my array. Let's begin with this just simple data types. So I'm just going to say I'm just going to have different numbers inside of my list. Let's say 2, or let's have I will have prime numbers. So 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and so on and so forth. So this is going to be my prime numbers. So, and now if I will try to print out list, it will give me 7. So something that says 7, and my values from 1 or from 0 to 8. So if I open it, I have length, which tells 7, and I have 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 5, and 6, 8. What is this one? You may be wondering, and if you studied Java well, you probably know all of these things, so it's going to be easy for you to understand. But anyway, so those are the indexes that we have in our array. Okay, so why do we have even indexes? Okay, the problem is, in order for us to access those values, we need to specify indexes of these numbers. Okay, so just an example, let's say if I would like to access value number 2. So the description says that the corresponding index of number 2 of the value 2 is actually 3. So what do you think I need to print out here in order to print out what I need to type down here in order to print out number 2? And 2 is actually the fourth number, so I'm just going to count it. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the index of number 2 probably is 4, and if I print out, if I type down 4, and if I print it out, it gives me 3. So the problem is, as any other programming language, or in general in computer science, we always start counting from 0. So 0 is actually our beginning point. So that's why in order for us to access number 3, we need to say, instead of list, and then we have square brackets. So I need to specify index 3. So list 3 will give me 2, and it's actually the value that I want to have. What about length? Length is how many values do we have in our array. And currently I have 7 values. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Sorry. So we have 7 values, so that's why the length of my array is 7. And as you can see, it starts from 0 and finishes at 6, so that's why it's 7. And what else? How do I access the length of my array? In order for us to access number 7, or let's say get my array length, is I'm just going to say list length, and it will return me 7 now. Well, why do we need this one? We need array length property or array length parameter for many different purposes. And the most common usage case is actually loops. So we know some different types of loops in programming languages, and one of the famous is for. So we have for in JavaScript as well. So we have for, and that is going to say for, and let's say I is equal 0, I is greater, less than, let's say 7, and then I plus plus. So you are most likely familiar with the syntax of this for loop. So we have keyword for, and then we open parentheses, and here we define the initial value of our variable. In our case, our variable is I, and the initial value is 0. Then we specify the condition, and then we specify what is going to happen with our variable every time we execute our expression. And our expression is going to be console.log so now if I run it here, I'm just going to save it, and I'm going to open my index.html page. And if I check my document here, you can see I have numbers from 0 to 6. Okay. Why is that? Well, we first start with the initial value. So we first print out 0. Then we finish the execution of our expression. We check the condition. If condition is still true, then we increment our I, and it will give us 1. So that's why we print out 1. Then we check it once again. It says 2, and so on and so forth. So at the last moment, we're going to increment it until 7, and 7 is not equal to, or is not less than 7. So this condition is false. That's why we are not seeing 7 here. And I think you know this one as well. But how can we do this with our arrays? Okay, how we can implement it. So let's say I have an array, I have a variable list, and let's say I have an array of 5 numbers. So 1, 4, 7, and let's say 10. So I have this array of numbers. Okay, so I'm just going to save it. And now for me, in order to print out all of these values, I need to count the number of values I have in an array. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 values in this array. So the length of my array is currently 5. And well, what will happen if I would like to print out my my array values? So instead of just printing out I will say list I. So here, what we are doing is actually we are providing a reference to our array, and then we are just saying, hey, I would like to print out values of array starting from 0, okay, until this condition is true. So what do you think will happen? Well, it will print out every value that we have in our array from 1, 2, 4, 7, and 10. That's what we have here. But what do you think will happen if I add one more number? So I'm going to say 15. So now the value, or I have 6 values of my array in my array. What do you think will happen now? Well, if I refresh my page, I'm still getting 1, 2, 4, 7, and 10. But where's the 15? 15 is still there. It's still in my list. But the problem here is that our condition is still I'm less than 5. So 5 was the length of my array before, but now length of my array is 6. Okay, so that's why we're not getting the last number. Okay. So what will happen if we will always constantly change the length of my array? So let's say I will have then 10, 20, and let's say 25, and so on. So the number here, we will always need to change it, okay? Which is not very efficient. Instead, what we can use, we can specify a list. So list is the name of my array, and then list.length will gives us, or will return us a property, a length, which is going to be a number, okay? And this number will be the number of values that we have in an array. So this is the actual length of my array. And it will be always dynamic. So it means if we will change the values inside of my array, so I'm going to have 30, 35, 40, it will always change. So now, what do you think, what do you think will happen? We will print out all the numbers, and it will happen if we will continue changing our array, even like this, 45, 50, and so on. So this one is going to get the actual length of my array, okay? So that's why it's responding to the changes we do with our arrays, okay? So that's why it's very efficient in loops, but also there are other things or other ways we can use this parameter, okay? But, or this property, sorry, but we're going to talk about this one later. Another thing about arrays, okay? So we can have different types of arrays, or different, let's say, data types inside of an array. So here we are used only numbers, but you can actually have strings. So I can say hello, my name is, I don't know, person. Okay, Mahabat is here. So my name is Mahabat. Right, this is correct. So what do you think we will print out? Still print out, hello, my name is Mahabat. Okay, so we inside of our array we can have different data types. So we can have strings, we can have numbers, we can have booleans even. So I can have something like true, false, and then true once again. So as you can see, and I can have float numbers 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, and so on. It will print out float numbers. And what else do we have in JavaScript? What data types we have? Undefined, null, objects. We can have even array of objects, but we're going to talk about this one later. Okay. We can have even not hybrid, but heterogeneous lists. So it's a mix of different data types. So the first one is going to be 2, second one is going to be string. The first one is going to be number, sorry, the second is string, third one is Boolean, and then we have floats and so on. So we can have even kind of heterogeneous arrays. Okay? So it will still work. Okay, so that's one of the beauties of JavaScript. Okay, what else we can do? We can actually have some operations or methods, or as people call it sometimes functions on data structures. And let me open my notes. So I forgot something maybe. So we talked about arrays. How do we declare arrays with the square brackets? So how do we access one of the values? So once again, in order to access values, we need to use curly bracket, square brackets, and we need to specify the index, the value that we want to see. For example, the first one will give us 2, second one will give us hello, and so on. And we always start from 0 once again. So in order for us to check probably our arrays, we can do something like this in console, and it will print out indexes and corresponding values, and also the length of this array and so on. What else we can have? We can have something called nested arrays. So basically arrays inside of our array. And let's have a look. So let me go back to my code here, and we'll comment this out. And in order to do comments in JavaScript, you can place 2 slashes, okay, in front of each line, and it will comment out those expressions in JavaScript, okay. And just a shorthand, you can use control slash, so that it will comment out and comment in those expressions. Anyway, let's talk about nested arrays. So we can have a variable list of lists. Okay, I'm just going to call it. And I hope you're familiar with the camel case declaration. So, and we also have what we call snake case declaration. Snake case is when we put underscores between our each of our words. So I have list, and then I put underscore of, and then once again I put underscore, and the third word is list. Okay, camel case is a little bit different. So we always start with the lowercase, and then we each word, then each consequent word we start with the capital letter. Okay. But I personally I prefer use snake. Personally I prefer using snake case. Anyway, let's continue talking about nested arrays. So we define the variable list of arrays, a list of lists. Sorry, and let's say I will have 2, or let's say 1. So the first value I'm going to have is 1, and then hello, and then let's say true. And the last one is going to be actually another array, which will contain float numbers, 4.5, and let's say 5.5. Okay, so if I save this one, okay, and refresh my page, and I'm going to say a list of lists here, and if I click enter and open the structure of my array, it says the following. The first one is the value 1. Then we have value hello, which is string. Then we have a Boolean value true. And the third parameter, or the third value that we have, is actually also array. So basically, it's an array of arrays. And inside of my array, I have values 4.5 and 5.5. Okay. So it's a nested array. So we have array inside of our array. And how do we access those values? So with something like one hello true is very obvious. So you can just say list of lists, and then you just say 0 for 1, 1 for hello, 2 for true, and so on. How do I assess something like this? So if I say list of lists 3, it will return me not the value, but actually my array, my nested array. Okay. So how do I access something that I have inside of my nested array? So I would like to print out 4.5. So in order to print 4.5, we first need to access my array, which is located on the index 3. So I need to say list of list 3, and then I need to specify another square brackets. Okay, and inside of these square brackets, I need to specify the second level of indexes, and it starts with 0 and have another 1. So I would like to print out the first one, 4.5. I need to say 3 and then 0, and it will give me in return 4.5, which is actually the value that I wanted to see, or I wanted to extract. We have nested arrays in JavaScript, just like in any other programming language. In Java, in Python, in C++, you also have nested arrays. So, and how do we bring back the initial lists, or let's say bring back to our previous values? So in order for us to refresh our array, or to, let's say, remove values from array, we can simply reassign it. So in order for us to reassign value, we just need to say its name, and just use the one equal sign, and just say empty. For in our case, it's going to be an empty array. So now our list of lists is actually empty. The length of it is 0. So I simply reassign my my array to make it empty. And one of the last things I would like to talk about today is what inbuilt functions do we have in arrays. Okay. And the first function that I would like to show you is called array shift. Okay, and this is actually not a function but a method. Okay, so if you would like to see what's the difference between functions and methods, okay, you can Google it. But simply saying functions is well, separately standing operations that we do. Methods, on the other hand, they belong to some objects, or they belong to some variables or data types. Okay, in our case, we will have 4 different functions today, or 4 different methods that I would like to show you, that is going to work only with arrays. And the first one is called shift. Okay, and let's figure out what shift does. So I'm just going to say list. I'm just going to define a new array, which will have 1, 4, and 5. So now my new array contains 3 different values, 1, 4, and 5. Okay, so what? Let's figure out what shift does. And the syntax, how do we use methods in JavaScript, is the same. So we just say list. So it's a variable name or data structure name. And then we say dot, and then just need to provide a method. And you can see it gives us f, which is stands for shortly for function. Okay, it's not actually in the function, but we don't have m for showing that this one is not a function but a method. But yeah, I think you get the point. Okay, so list shift tells us nothing because there is a native code inside, so we don't actually know what happens underneath the hood of our JavaScript engine, but we can figure out on our own. So what if happens if I say list.shift, and I'm going to call this method. So that's why I have parentheses here, and I'm going to click it. And as you can see, it's getting 1. What is actually 1 in our array? 1 is actually the first value that we have starting from the index 0. So basically this one gives us the first value that we have in array. But there is also another thing about shift, is that it not only returns the first value that we have in our array, but it also removes it from our array. So now our array contains of not 2 or not 3 values, but 2. So our 1 is actually gone. So we just return it, but if we don't save it anywhere, or if you don't do any operations on this one, it's just going to be completely lost and removed from the array. What will happen if I will execute list.shift once again? It will bring out 4, which is actually now the first value. So it automatically takes the place of the first one that's been removed. So we removed 1, and now 4 became became the value of index 0, and 5 became the value of index 1. And now if we check our array once again, we'll have only 1 value left, which is 5, and it once again moved moved 1 place. So it's value of the index 0 now. So shift is actually takes the first value in our array, it returns it and removes it from our array forever. Let's try with pop. So instead of shift, we're going to say pop. Okay, and list pop print out 5. Okay, and it's very unusual. So what do you think will happen to my list? My list now has no values at all. So basically, list pop works the same as shift, but there is one difference between shift and pop, is that pop works with the last value that we have in our array. And simply because we had only that was at the same time the first and the last value, that's why we got 5. But if we'll have, let's say, something like this, okay, list now, our array consists of 7 different values, and if we will run list pop once again, it will return us 8, which is the last element in our list. Okay, and as you can see, now list contains 6 values instead of 7, where the last one is gone. So we got this one from an array, we returned that, and we removed it completely. Another interesting method that we have is called push. And as you can guess, list, for example, list push, and we need to specify a value, and let's say 10. What do you think will happen? List push returns a 7, which is unusual. What is 7? We have no value 7 in our array. Value 7 is actually a new length of our list, of our array. Okay. So once we add, push, what it does is actually adds a new value to our array at the end of it. So we add 10 at the end of our array, and we return 7, which is the new value of our length, okay? Which is also very cool. And the last method that I would like to show you is array concat. So it allows us to join arrays together. So let's see how it works. So the first one is we have list that can list array list that contains 7 values, and the second array that we have is list of lists, which is actually consists of 4 values. One of it is a nested array. So what does concat? What does it do? Concat here allows us to concatenate values together. So, but before we even show it how we do it with 2 different arrays, let me try with a new one. So I'm just going to say list concat, and inside of it, I'm going to specify another array. It's going to say, let's say 15 and 20. And if I click enter, it returns us a new value, 9, which is the new array length. So we'll have indexes from 0 to 8, where the values 15 will correspond to the index 7, and value 20 will correspond to the index 8, the last index. But is there something unusual we find? Something unusual here is that even though we concatenated values, and we basically added 15 and 12 at the end of our array, but when we check this array once again, okay, it has no 15 and 20. It has no new values, and the reason is that those previous 2 or 3 methods, pop, push, and shift, they were modifying the existing array or the array that is working on it. Okay, so we called method push on array list, so that's why it's modified it. Okay, another type of method that we have is not immutable, but they did not change the state of the current array. Instead, they save it somewhere else. So basically, in order for us to concatenate 2 arrays and save this value somewhere, we need to assign a new variable. So let's say var list number 2, which is going to be equal to list concat, and then we'll have 15 and 20. Okay, so now if we'll check the list, our initial array was 7, and even though we added 2 values, it remains 7. But our list 2 now is a combination of our first array with 2 additions that we have, so 15 and 20. So what do you think we will have if we will run command like this, list final, and we will say list 2 concat, and now I will add list of lists. What do you think will be the result? The result is that list final will have 13 values. The first 10 are going to be numbers, and then we'll have a string, a boolean, and finally we will have a nested array. So basically, I joined 2 arrays together, okay, and I have one united array. So that's some of the functions or some of the most common methods on arrays in JavaScript. And if you want to have other methods, or if you would like to explore them, you can just go array methods JavaScript. Okay. And the first website that pops up usually is W3 Schools. And well, as you can see, there are different types: converting arrays to strings, popping and pushing, shifting, and other things as well. Okay, and deleting elements even. So that's what we have in JavaScript. So working with arrays in JavaScript is it's a little bit tricky from time to time, but it's also much easier than working with arrays in Java, let's say, or C++. So well, that's basically it, I think, for today that I wanted to tell you. And I also want you to explore JavaScript looping on your own. So we have for, we have while, we have do while, and the last one is for each, but for each is something that we have very recently. It was added, okay? So it wasn't from the beginning. Anyway, so JavaScript looping, I want you to explore on your own, or just keep simply refresh your memory, because I think you remember everything from Java, and it's the same thing here. So that's it for today. And do you have any questions, maybe? Okay, so if you don't have any questions, I've shared the password with you, so you can mark your attendance. That's it for today.